Hey there, nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of From Hell, our series that is dedicated to Reign in Hell battle reports. And this is battle report number 2, and is a Desecration Scenario that is fought between the Earthbound as well as the Empty. So in case you're tuning in for the very first time, this gaming system, Reign in Hell, is a demonic combat skirmish game that was developed by Snarling Studios. Snarling Studios is actually founded by Vince Venturilla as well as Adam Loper, both of Tabletop Minions and Warhammer Weekly fame, right here on YouTube. And so this is an independent game that they created, which is an agnostics miniatures game, which means that they simply give you a rule set and you can use whatever miniatures you want in order to play skirmish combat in the depths of hell. So this battle report is actually fought between my two friends Shade as well as Odeth. My little sister Shade is bringing the Shrieking Masquerade, her Earthbound Cabal, while Odeth is bringing all his dust, the Empty Cabal as well. So we're going to play some background music real quick. As the music is playing, we will show you photos of both cabals as well as the rosters. If you want to see exactly what they're bringing for this one, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
So the scenario rules for this one is called Desecration. Pretty much there are 4 objectives and the players are put into opposing corners in a 6x6 deployment zone. The condition for the victory conditions for this game, the game lasts 5 rounds and each is trying to destroy the objectives when this is happening. The winner is trying to destroy, the attacker is trying to destroy 3 objectives while the defender is trying to stop it. If the defender chooses to claim an objective, it moves with their demon, and when the attacker moves into contact with the objective, they may try to destroy the objective, but they have to do a basic attack and have to at least roll boxcars or 2 6s in order to destroy it. And if it's being carried, the defender must kill the demon first before they can actually destroy the objective. For the rewards on this one, attacker may roll 1 additional time on the Essence reward table for each objective they manage to destroy, while the defender may roll 1 additional time on the relics table for each objective that was not destroyed. So the scenario rules over, let's go and talk about the battle plan real quick. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, we are playing on a Warcry battle mat, which is 22 inches wide by 30 inches long, and this is the actual design tabletop that the game actually suggests you play on. And as you can see, we have 4 relics that are pretty much scattered diagonally right across the middle of the table as well. Now, the defenders on this one, which are the Earthbound, which is represented by my sister Shade's warband in the bottom left-hand corner, they're going to try to defend those relics by actually moving up to them, grabbing them, and moving around the table. At the same time, the attackers, which are the Empty, located in the upper right-hand corner, which is Odeth's cabal, he's going to try to destroy those objectives as well. Now, I talked to my friends before the game actually started to get their understanding for the battle, what their battle plan was. For Shade, her plan is to actually move up her Mephetes to kind of grab their objectives and then to kind of move them around and pretty much play keep away the entire time by keeping those objectives away from the Empty. And it's actually pretty good that she does that because the Earthbound actually get +1 to their movement for all their demons as a benefit from their philosophy. Now, as for my friend Odeth, this is a really good scenario for him because he is playing the Empty, and the Empty basically have a special rule that all demons can use where they get bonuses to destroy terrain as well as objectives called Burn It All, which means that so long as they're within 1 inch of it, they can destroy like a normal attack as well. So this could actually end up being good for him. As for my friend Odeth, basically said pretty much his plan is to send up his move his forces as quick as he can, try to destroy the objectives, and at the same time, put her hurting directly towards the Earthbound. Which also makes sense because my buddy Odeth has a lot of tentacle beasts within his army, so they're actually a pretty fast-moving cabal for his Empty warband. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both of my friends roll off their d12s for their initiative dice to see which of them will be going first. So let's go and talk about deployment real quick. For all his dust, the Empty cabal that is played by my friend Odeth is located in the upper right-hand corner. And the very back, he's got Skrakalikos, which is his leader demon, who is a zealot. He's got the 1 with nothing ability, as well as a frenzy special ability, which gives him 2-up combat attacks whenever he charges 4, and a 3 of combat attack score when he fights against leaders. He's also got Eternal Mind, which means he can reroll 1 initiative die every turn, and at the same time he's got the Token of Luck, which once per round he can reroll 1 of his dice. Right next to him on the left hand side, that is is Innistrad. He's a Devout Demon who is a Void Demon. He's got 1 with nothing special rule, which means that if he should be killed, he doesn't die. In fact, he actually teleports back on the battlefield with 5 life remaining. And at the same time, he's also got the Oblivion mechanic, which basically means that every single time that he slays an enemy model, he gets +1 to his Oblivion score, which means that he can also disappear off the table and teleport anywhere on the table up to that many inches on that point using his Oblivion score. So he's doing pretty good there. At the same time, in the very front, we got the little blue guy, that's Screamer. He is a lesser demon. He's a Mephet demon with fly as well as sting and move abilities. At the same time, we also have 3 Tentacle Beasts, Fail, Spiderflux, as well as Bastet, and all 3 of those guys have grappling arm abilities, which means they have -1 to their enemy combat ability, as well as -3 movement for all enemies within 1 inch of them as well as one of their buffs. And then finally, in the middle there, right next to Skrakalikos, is called Hellbrass. He is a Slaughter Fiend. He's got the Paragon of Slaughter special rule, which means that in focused combat attacks, he gets +2 to his combat attack score. And that pretty much makes a deployment for all his dust. So moving to the bottom left-hand corner, this is the deployment for the Shrieking Masquerade. This is my sister Shade's Cabal. In the back left-hand corner, that is Asmodeus, who's the leader demon. He's a schemer with Master Manipulator, as well as Skirmish Spirit, as well as Axe of Back Blood and Quick Escape. As a schemer for Master Manipulator, what he can do is actually he can sacrifice 1 die if he wants to for her initiative, and basically she can move a demon within range within 12 inches if she wants to, or she could use that die instead to actually use that to move before she gets attacked against, in case her leader is attacked by another demon. Her Skirmish Spirit allows her to give her +3 movement when she does a running skirmish attack, and the Axe of Back Blood actually gives her +1 to her combat attack score as well. And of course, Quick Escape, which is actually kind of nice. Pretty much the first time the enemy moves within 1 inch of her, she could actually remove an initiative dice and actually move her leader before he gets attacked. The only thing the enemy can do is just move. They can't attack her, which is actually kind of a neat ability. Now, right next to her on the left-hand side, that is Enkari. She's her Devout Demon, who is her Succubus. She's got the Fly ability as well as 2 Charming ability, which means that once per round, an enemy within 3 inches moves and attacks as if it was possessed by her. And she also has her Inequity combat ability as well. And Inequity, basically, it's a game mechanic where she starts off with 0 Inequity, and for each time a friendly demon slays an enemy, she gets +1 to that score. And what that ends up happening is that anytime she's attacked, she can use her current Iniquity score and actually subtract that much damage that she takes. And of course, when she does, that resets and starts all over again. Now, right in front of those guys are 3 Slaughter Fiends. Those are Cassiel, Caspiel, as well as Kame. Those are 3 Slaughter Fiends with their Paragons of Slaughter ability. And then right in the front of them, we have 2 Mephets. We have Balal as well as Beliar. And that pretty much makes a deployment for Shade. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1, and here are the initiative dice that are rolled up for them as well. So the very first person that actually gets to go first is the Empty. The first thing that my buddy Odeth does is he activates his Mephet Screamer, who just moves up his maximum move allowance, heading directly to one of the objective areas. For Odeth's next activation, he then activates Skrakalikos, his leader, who decides to use his 1 with Nothing ability. And what that 1 with Nothing ability means that once per game before any activations, a leader could be removed off the battlefield. And during the next turn, my buddy Odeth will sacrifice 1 initiative die, in which case his leader can actually be deployed anywhere and teleport anywhere on the battlefield within as long as he's 3 inches away from enemies. So that could be absolutely brutal. So that's what he does for his second activation. Shade then activates one of her Mephets, who moves forward 10 inches because they actually get +1 movement because they're Earthbound demons, and she secures her very first objective, which means now that Mephet has that objective in her possession. And then Odeth responds by sending one of his Tentacle Beasts climbing up to the top of the ruins and starting to make their way directly to the bottom right-hand corner for the other objective located there. Shade then activates her next Mephet, who lands about 1 inch away from the second objective marker. Looks like she's trying to use her Mephets to actually be like running backs, where they run up, grab the objectives, and then move out of the battlefield. And for Odeth's next activation, he sends 2 of his Tentacle Beasts moving up for their maximum movement allowance, heading straight down the middle of the battlefield, looking like they're about to put their assault directly towards the objectives located there. Meanwhile, Shade then ends up sending up her 3 Slaughter Fiends, moving them up forward 6 inches forward because they get +1 to their movement for being Earthbound demons. She starts sending them right down the middle between the 2 sets of ruins, so that way she can start protecting her Mephets. And then Odeth sends Innistrad, his Void Demon, which is moves him up his maximum allowance of 8 inches to catch with the Tentacle Beast. And that guy is actually pretty scary. He's got a 7 combat score, movement 8, 10 life as well. And he's also got his 1 with Nothing ability, which means he doesn't die. He comes back to life with a 5 life if he does that. And with that Oblivion Oblivion game mechanic that he has as well, this guy could potentially be a very fast-moving, hard-hitting Devout Demon. Shade goes next. She activates Enkari, her Succubus, who actually spends her movement balance going right directly up to the front lines with the rest of her Slaughter Fiends, which kind of makes sense though, because that way she can use her 2 Charming ability as well, and she's no slouch in combat either. And then for Odeth's final activation, he sends up Alcold Hellbrass as Slaughter Fiend to kind of move in right behind the Innistrad as well as the 2 Tentacle Beasts. And finally for Shade's last activation, she moves up Asmodeus, her leader demon, up to the right hand side, skirting along the bottom of the table, heading toward the objective on the bottom right hand corner. So with that ends turn number 1. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield after the very first turn. As you can see, pretty much just a bunch of movements taking place in this turn, not much action taking place. However, Shade, she did manage to secure the left center objective marker there, so that way she can kind of run away with that objective and keep it away from the empty. At the same time, she's also moving her forces forward as well as to the right to start securing the other 2 objectives in the bottom right hand corner of the battlefield. Meanwhile, my friend Odeth starts sending his forces forward right down the middle, trying to take the offense and try to secure those objectives to destroy them. At the same time, his leader Skorkalikos is off on the battlefield using his one with nothing ability, so that way he can teleport in later rounds. So with the end of turn number 2, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and my friends roll off their D12s to get their initiative and activation orders. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 2, and these were the initiative activation dice that my 2 friends rolled up. And for the very first activation, my friend Odeth decides to send Skorkalikos directly into 3 inches behind Asmodeus. And because he arrives there 3 inches behind him, he gets to activate like a normal demon, and he chose a charging attack going directly to the back of Asmodeus. The problem, of course, is that Shade decides to use her Master Manipulator ability for her Scheming Demon, and because of that, she uses up one of her initiative dice to actually move all the way across the other side of the table, moving forward 9 inches, escaping the range of Skorkalikos. Now, Skorkalikos is within range to attack one of the Slaughter Fiends instead, and so that's what my friend Odeth decides to do instead. As you see, he managed to put 5 wounds directly onto that Slaughter Fiend as well, so that part was absolutely brutal. However, by doing this though, it was kind of interesting. My friend Odeth was trying to do a surprise attack against Shade's leader, but then Shade gave him the slip on that part, so this is actually a really bad spot for his leader to be in, because now he's all by himself without any support, surrounded by Slaughter Fiends as well as a Succubus, so he actually is in a bad spot right now. So for Odeth's next activation, he activates one of his Mephetes who does a charging attack directly into Shade's Mephete, which is currently holding on to that objective marker. Luckily for Shade though, she only suffers 1 wound on that one, so because of that, her demon is perfectly fine. In response though, Shade decides to activate that same Mephete and actually have him move back directly 10 inches to the back left hand corner, keeping that objective away from the empty. So for Shade's next activation, she activates her other Mephete. I believe that's Beliar is his name. Basically, he does a moving, he moves up directly to secure that first objective, so that way he can kind of bounce back as well. So Beliar moves up, grabs the objective, and spends the rest of his movement going directly to the top of the ruins, keeping it out of the clutches of that tentacle beast. Now, because he was in the range of that tentacle beast within 1 inch, Shade did lose 3 inches on her movement characteristic, which only gave her a characteristic of 7, but she was only 1 inch away from the objective to begin with, and the other 6 inches was enough to climb to the top, to get away, as well as climb to the top of the ruins as well. So once again, she's really showing off how quick Earthbound Warbands can really be with that +1 movement, with that ready to move ability that they have. So with that, we go directly to my friend Odeth. He then activates one of his Tentacle Beasts. I believe that Tentacle Beast is Fail. Basically, he moves up his maximum movement allowance, heading directly towards that bottom right-hand corner objective. And Shade sends in one of her Slaughter Boots. Or Slaughter Fiend, I'm sorry. I believe that guy's name is Caspiel is his name. Caspiel does a charging attack directly into Skorkalikos and managed to put 3 wounds on him as well. Odeth then activates one of his Tentacle Beasts as well. I believe that character's name is, Bastet is his name. Bastet actually heads to the left-hand side, moving up his maximum allowance through that door, heading directly to the objective marker in the upper left-hand corner. And then for Shade's next activation, she activates another one of her Slaughter Fiends. I believe that guy's name is Cassiel. Cassiel charges directly, does a charging attack into Skorkalikos, and puts another 5 wounds onto this guy, bringing up his maximum wounds up to 10, which is actually really bad for him because Skorkalikos only has 13 life for his character. Odeth then activates Innistrad, his Void Demon, who moves up his maximum movement allowance along the left-hand side, heading directly towards the main battle line of Slaughter Fiends, as well as the Succubus that Shade has in the middle of the battlefield. And so for Shade's activation, she activates Ankari, her Succubus, who does a charging attack directly into Skorkalikos. Unfortunately for her, though, she's only got combat level 4, so she has to roll a 4 up in order to get the attacks off directly onto Skorkalikos, so she was only able to put 1 damage directly onto him. But still, this guy only has 2 health left before Odeth's leader, Skorkalikos, ends up being slain. And that's exactly what ends up happening. Came the very last of the Slaughter Fiends from Shade's Warband. He basically does a charging attack directly into Skorkalikos as well. Was able to finish off the last 2 wounds, and just like that, Skorkalikos is now dead, and he will need to roll up on the Soul Loss table to see exactly what happens to him. And at the same time, Shade also, not only does she manage to kill that character, she also gets a Soul Dice with a value of 2, and at the same time, she also earns a point of Iniquity as well. So here's an overhead shot at the end of turn number 2 with the battlefield. As you can see, pretty much what's happening is that the Shrieking Masquerade are kind of doing like a hit and run type of attack situation. As you can see, Shade's 2 Mephetes moved up, grabbed their objectives, and now moved back directly to the bottom left-hand corner of the table, trying to basically keep those 2 objectives away from the empty. At the same time, as you can see in this photo, she's also bringing back her forces, then she brought them back to her deployment area in order to kill Squirkalikos, the leader of the All Is Dust. And at the same time, you can see that Asmodeus has moved to the right-hand side, making his way directly to the right-hand objective in the bottom right-hand corner. Meanwhile, my friend Odeth is continuing on pursuing forward with his forces, pushing down directly down the center between the 2 sets of ruins, at the same time branching off forces to secure the objectives in the top left-hand corner as well as the bottom right-hand corner. So with turn number 2 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and my friends roll off for their activation dice to see which of them will be going first. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 3, and here are the activation dice for both the Earthbound as well as the Empty. So going first, Shade activates Asmodeus, her leader demon, who actually does a running skirmish attack directly against that demon up there. I believe that demon's name is Fail is his name. Basically for the running skirmish, because he's got the skirmish spirit ability, he basically gets 3 additional added to his movement allowance, which gives him a total of movement of 3. So he moves up, attacks, puts 3 wounds directly onto Fail, and also backs up a couple inches as well, at the same time securing that objective marker at the same time. Now by doing this, she does activate the Tentacle Beast's grabbing arms ability, so because that he does lose 3 inches off his movement, but it's enough in order to do that attack and pull back and to grab that objective at the same time. And for Shade's activation, she then activates one of her Mephetes. I believe that character's name is Belial is his name. He's the one who's carrying a wound. He basically takes his relic and moves it directly into the center of her deployment area, where the Slaughter Fiends as well as the Succubus can protect it. So after that, my friend Odeth decides to activate Bastet is his name, which is the Tentacle Beast. He tries to use his Burn It All ability to try to destroy that objective marker, but unfortunately for him though, he's unable to roll boxcars, so that objective is perfectly fine. Meanwhile, Shade activates 2 fighters in a row. She activates her 2 Slaughter Fiends. They move up forward directly to the center of the battlefield, heading directly towards the Tentacle Beast as well as the Mephete, at the same time protecting their Mephete, which is carrying a relic on it. So responsible for an Odeth then activates one of his Tentacle Beasts who charges directly into the Slaughter Fiend, managed to put 2 wounds on him as well, which is actually kind of rough because Slaughter Fiends only have 10 life on them as well. And I do apologize for the blurriness of this photo. It looks like my depth of field actually caught the ruin and not the action taking place in the background. So I do apologize for that. So not to be outdone, Shade then sends in one of her Slaughter Fiends. I believe that guy's name is Caspiel. Caspiel does a charging attack directly into the Tentacle Beast, putting 5 wounds on him. And in order to bring the pain, my friend Odeth then sends in Innistrad, his Void Demon, who goes charging directly into Cassiel, I believe is the name of that Slaughter Fiend, and manages to do a charging attack, putting 6 wounds on him right off the bat. So that Void Demon, whoo, that thing hits hard. That thing actually causes a lot of damage. It's absolutely terrifying. So for next activation, Shade then activates Inkari, her Succubus, who moves her up her maximum movement allowance to get within range of the Void Demon Innistrad. And the reason why I think Shade is doing that, she didn't really say it during the battle report, but afterwards she told me her plan was actually to move Inkari up forward, so that way she could use her 2 Charming ability in order to possess Innistrad and have him start attacking his own people, because that Void Demon is such a hard hitter. So with that, Odeth then activates the Screamer, which is his Mephete. His Mephete does a charging attack directly into the objective mark on the top, but unfortunately for him though, he wasn't able to roll Snake Eyes, so because of that, that objective is still completely fine. And for his last activation, Odeth then activates Ackled Hellbrass, his Slaughter Fiend, who does a maximum moon allowance directly towards the center of the battlefield to try to join into the fight that's breaking out in the middle of the battlefield. And then for Shade's very last activation, she activates her last Mephete, Balar. That guy does a fly, moving 10 inches to the back left-hand corner, keeping those 2 objectives secure and away from the empty. And with that, that ends turn number 3. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, a melee is starting to break out right there in the middle of the battlefield between the Void Demon as well as the Tentacle Beast and the Slaughter Fiend that Odeth is bringing from the empty. At the same time, Shade, her Slaughter Fiends, as well as her Succubus are trying to fight against them in the center of the battlefield as well. Meanwhile, in the top left-hand corner, the Empty are trying to destroy that objective mark up there to release the essence within. At the same time, Shade is also securing the bottom right-hand objective, at the same time putting a skirmish attack directly onto that Tentacle Beast there as well. And then lastly, Shade, as you can see here, she's taking her 2 Mephets carrying the objectives and brought them back to her side of the battlefield to keep them away from the Empty. So with turn number 3 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 4, and my friends roll off on their activation dice to see exactly who will be going first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 4, and here's the activation dice orders for both Cabals. So the first thing that ends up happening is that my friend Odeth knows exactly what Shade's trying to do, so he activates Innistrad first. Innistrad does a running skirmish attack, finishing off Cassiel, which is the Slaughter Fiend, slaying that character dead to right, so that part was kind of sad. And then he moves him 8 inches his maximum movement allowance over to the left-hand side, directly to that top left-hand corner, in order to activate that objective, so that way he can attack it during his next turn. Which is a pretty smart move, because if he hadn't moved that Innistrad character out of the way, I had no doubt that Shade would have activated Inkari next and actually possess him with his 2 Charming ability. So unfortunately for Shade, her Slaughter Fiend does get killed, but luckily for my buddy Odeth, he does get his Soul Dice with a value of 2 on that one. At the same time, he also earns 1 point for his Oblivion total. So for her next activation, she actually gets to activate twice in a row on this one. She activates Caspiel, her Slaughter Fiend, who decides to do a focus attack directly into, I believe that guy's name is Spiderflux is his name, which is the name of the Tentacle Beast. Gets 2 up to his combat actions as well because of that, and just managed to murder that guy right off the next plane. So because of that, he is slain, and he will need to roll up on the Soul Loss table after the scenario. At the same time, Shade earned another Soul Dice with a value of 6 on that one, so that part's kind of cool. Shade then sends in KM, her other Slaughter Fiend has him do a charging attack directly into Ackled Hellbrass, and actually managed to put 6 wounds directly onto him as well, which is absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately for Shade though, Odeth gives as much as he gets, so because of that he decides to do a focus attack with Ackled Hellbrass directly into KM as well. Managed to put 8 wounds on him as well, so because of that, looks like that Odeth is coming out on the top on that brawl between those 2 Slaughter Fiends. Meanwhile, the Screamer, which is the Mephet that's located in the upper left-hand corner, gets activated next, decides to try to attack the objective, and unfortunately for him though, is unable to destroy it. Shade then activates Inkari, her Succubus, who does a fly charging attack directly into Ackled Hellbrass, was able to finish him off with the last couple of wounds on him, and managed to slay that character as well. Also at the same time, also netting her an additional point of inequity, as well as a soul die. I forgot to take a photo of it, so I do apologize for that part. So, watching his center to collapse, Odeth decides to activate his Tentacle Beast Fail, who moves over to the left-hand side, just kind of skirting around Asmodeus, going underneath those stairways and making his way directly towards the bottom left-hand corner of the battlefield. So, not to be outdone, Shade then activates her general, Asmodeus, who does a charging attack directly into Fail and finishes that guy off in close combat as well. So even with the grabbing armor abilities, which dropped his combat score by 1, he did charge, getting an additional combat score on top of that, and he's also got his Axe of Black Blood, so because he got 6 attack dice and just ate up the very last few wounds directly onto that Tentacle Beast, so that part was brutal. And at the same time, also earning another point of inequity, as well as another soul die as well. And I forgot to take a photo of the soul dice. I do apologize for that. And then for his very last activation, Odeth activates Bastet, which is his last of his Tentacle Beast, who tries to attack the Relic. Unfortunately, though, was unable to roll was unable to roll Boxcar, so because of that Relic is perfectly fine. So that takes directly to the end of turn number 4, so you've already shot the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, things are not looking very good right now for Odeth, as well as all this Dust Cabal. His forces in the middle of the table have been completely slaughtered by Shade's Slaughter Fiends, as well as her Succubus. At the same time, she's also managed to secure 3 of her objectives as well, with Asmodeus, as well as her 2 Mephets, Balal, as well as Balar as well. So because of that, pretty much getting beast mode on that one. Also managed to secure 4 sets of soul dice as well, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 6, as well as 3 points of inequity. Meanwhile, the Odeth and his all his Dust Warband, they're trying to destroy that upper right left-hand corner objective, so that way they can get the essence located then. At the same time, they also have 1 soul die of the value of 2, as well as 1 point of oblivion as well. And the sad part is the last turn number 5, is next. So that takes directly to the end of turn number 5. I didn't really take photos or record the initiative dice on this one, just because it was pretty simple to see what's going to happen for the most part. So as you can see, what ended up happening is that Shade, she decides to activate all of her fighters over the course of the turn, sending them moving over to the upper left-hand corner as quick as she can, or try to engage close combat with the members of the All Is Dust. Unfortunately for her, though, she wasn't able to get within range to do any attacks, but at the same time, it looks pretty dramatic. And for Odeth, he takes turns activating his Mephet the Screamer, as well as Bastet the Tentacle Beast. Both those guys were unable to get Boxcars to destroy the Relic. However, Innistrad the Void Demon, though, he was able to roll 3 6s on that one, so because of that, he breaks that Relic open and also releases the essence stored within. And there you have it, folks. That takes directly to the end of the game, with the Earthbound managed to win the scenario on this one. They managed to secure the most objectives and prevented the All Is Dust Warband from actually destroying anything. So because of that, the Earthbound win their very first battle report, while the Empty loses their very first one. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, go directly to the after action report, to the post game, because this battle report is now officially over. So for the post game, starting off with the Empty with All Is Dust. For their soul loss, they actually suffered 4 slain demons. Skrakalikos actually got the Chaos Power ability for his one and actually got +1 to his combat score, so now he's combat 7, so it makes him even a little bit deadlier in close combat as well, which is great for my friend. At the same time, Fail and Spider Flux, the 2 tentacle beasts, they roll no effects, so they're perfectly fine. And for Alcold Hellbrass, my friend Odeth rolled Chaos Power again and actually rolled a +1 for movement on this one. So all benefit, no negatives on this one. So now Alcold Hellbrass moves 6 inches, which is actually pretty good for him. Now for the rewards section, they get 1 roll on the Essence table because they managed to crack open one of the objective markers. In this case, they rolled Essence of Luck, which means that you can replace one of your dice from your combat attacks and replace it with a 6. So because of that, my friend Odette decided to put that on Alcold Hellbrass because that guy does the most combat and also could use the bonus. At the same time, the rewards table also got 1 roll on the relic table, and they managed to secure a reliquary, which means that for once per battle when used, this demon can get +1 to their movement as +1 to their combat score as well. And in this case, my buddy Odette decided to put that on Innistrad, his Void Demon, as well. At the same time, because they did manage to capture 1 soul dice, they managed to get 6 souls added to their ledger as well. Now for their titles and advancements, as well as for recruitment expeditions, there were none done during this time period. So in the end, the new record now for All Is Dust is at 0 wins and 1 loss. Now moving on to the victors with the Shrieking Masquerade of the Earthbound. For my sister Shay, she suffered 1 casualty. That was Castiel, her Slaughter Brute, and when she rolled up for the Soul Loss table, rolled no effect, so he's perfectly fine as well. Now from the rewards table, they get 3 rolls on the relic table because they managed to secure 3 of the objectives. In this case, she got 2 Bloodstained Gauntlets, which means that when you're making a combat defensive roll, for every 6 that you roll, you put 1 damage on your opponent. So she decided to give this to 2 of her Slaughter Fiends, Castiel as well as Caspiel. At the same time, her third relic was a Gem of Healing, which means that whenever these demons activate, they heal D3 health with each activation, and she decided to put that Gem of Healing directly onto Inkari, her succubus. At the same time, for a normal reward, she actually got 1 roll on the Essence table, and she got the Essence of the Wanderer, which means that whenever you go through a piece of terrain, you roll twice for the terrain effect and manage to choose that one, and she put this on Asmodeus. Now, granted, in this very first set of games, for the very first round of our campaign, we're not actually using any terrain rules whatsoever, and the reason why is just because we're just trying to get the basic game mechanics down. And the second round of our campaign, though, we will be using terrain rules, so this will be proved to be very, very helpful for the Asmodeus of the Earthbound. At the same time, because she also managed to secure 4 soul dice, she also earned 24 souls, which she puts directly into her ledger. Now, for titles and advancements as well as expeditions, she decided to fund none of those, but she decided to spend a couple of her soul points to recruit a tentacle beast named Rahab, and so because that, he is now added to the roster as well, and she put her 8 remaining soul dice directly into her ledger. Her current record now is at 1 win and 0 losses. So that's going to do for this week, guys. This one is actually being a really cool campaign system. My gaming group and I are absolutely loving this rule set for Reign in Hell. It's a very fast, hard-hitting, quick game. I think this game took us about 40 minutes actually to play. I don't think it even took us an hour. To be honest, it actually spent more time making the battle report for this game than we did actually watching the game being played. So that part's actually kind of cool as well. So, I highly suggest you guys play it because it's an absolute blast of a game and it's really, really fun as well. So that's good for this week, guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to our channel. That's good for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.